Hey, everybody, your hospitality friend, Glenn Haussman here. I'm so glad that you could join us on what I'm sure is going to be a very special episode of No Vacancy Live. Why? Because we're doing a fun 30-minute format. We're going to be getting right to the issues. We're going to be giving you solutions to the problems that you're having out there right now. And to be frank, I've been on the road every single week now for the last 8 weeks. I've been talking to hoteliers, chatting with them, really learning what their problems are. And you know what those problems are. Expenses are going up and the ability to get profitability up is declining. And that's really what we're going to be approaching today, right? So I've got great guests today, which I'll introduce in just one moment, but I do have to thank these folks over at SIB, Fixed Cost Reduction, and M3. So SIB, they're great. They are the leading cost reduction and contract compliance services firm across major spend categories, and they're your trusted partner to business leaders in the mid-market, enterprise, and private equity companies. Businesses like yours are finding ways to save money by utilizing their services. Go to aboutsib.com. And also thanks to M3, the #1 provider of hotel accounting software across North America. It's used by over 1,000 management groups. So you guys know you can trust them too. With accounting geared specifically towards hospitality, you're going to save money right off the bat with that. But don't trust me. Trust the people we're going to be talking with. Check them at m3as.com. That's M3AS. I think that's accounting software. All right, so let's bring in our incredible guest today. Starting off number one, hold on one second. Starting off number one, I got my friend Tejal Patel. She's the president and CEO of Neem Tree Hospitality, followed by a newer friend, Billy Gilchrist, Chief Development and Finance Officer. And I've got Rosalind Gallegher, who I just met but can't wait to work with. She's the Director of Accounting, and both of them are with Hotel Development and Management Group. Tejal, we're getting a 2-for-1 deal with those guys.
I know, and they're great people too, and great companies. So
I know, right? So, Billy, let me just start with you, because you're sitting in a hotel room right now, right? How are you thinking about what's going on out there? I mean, the big industry is we're seeing a lot of issues affecting profitability. I'll just throw out a couple: labor, right, and the costs of goods and services seem to be coming up. I'm sure you're witnessing that too. What else are you seeing out there where expenses are really rising for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing this year outside of labor, lodging conference was a couple weeks ago, and I think that was the biggest highlight I heard, is that labor is still a huge issue for all of us. And it's gotten a little better, but certainly hasn't improved to where we'd like to see it. But the biggest line items I'm seeing, of course, are in guest amenities. The amenity creep is a real thing now that we're post-COVID, and the brands have all gone back to their brand standards, and they're actually doing quality checks on everything we're doing. And so that has creeped up a lot this year. Breakfast costs have creeped up a lot this year, and comp service.
Oh, my goodness.
All three of those line items drive me nuts every month when I review our P&Ls. And then lastly, as everybody knows, especially because we're in Florida, insurance costs have also gone up. So those are the big ones that are plaguing us currently.
Yeah, for sure. I would have thought, and this is actually surprising to me, I've been talking to a lot of people about this insurance thing, particularly soaring in Florida. But I thought that amenity creep thing and the breakfast issues were being resolved. Tejal, I remember the major brands in the last couple of years really started to refine it. Is it that they're adding more things back in, or is it just the expenses for the items that are left are soaring so much, or maybe a combination of both?
I think that it's probably a combination of a little bit of both, but I think it's more so just the fact that items are just more expensive than they used to be.
Right.
And, when you factor that in with everything else you're doing to, first of all, acquire customer, to even get the guest in through the front door, there's not really much of an ROI on, again, that amenity creep. Me giving like a full-on hot breakfast, is that really incentivizing the guest to actually walk through my doors when there's plenty of options available?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And that's an interesting thing. And that really tells me you need to reevaluate every single thing you're doing in that hotel property, because you really struck a chord. A lot of times we get stuck up in that thought of what is it the guests want, as opposed to really considering what it is that guests really need. For me personally, I'm not going there specifically because of the breakfast. I'm going there for a variety of other factors first. So I don't think I'm going to feel all, chuffed if I don't get myself, that free waffle. Although, complimentary waffle. Rosalind,
Well, if you come to Texas, you'll get a Texas-shaped waffle. So
There you go.
hey, just want to announce I'll be in Texas actually in just 1 month from today. So I'm looking forward to maybe I'll have that waffle and some good smoked brisket. But Rosalind,
Yes, sure.
you're working behind the scenes, right? You're really there on the front lines on seeing that profitability erosion that's happening for hoteliers. How concerned are you about that? And what are the two to three categories you think you are finding most control over being able to return them to property, to previously profitable levels?
Yeah, I know Tejal and Billy is more focused on the operations side that, with the cost of the breakfast and the guest amenities, but they forgot to say that because of the inflation, the increase of the utilities is also there. Like every month, the rates goes up, and we will just kind of see those higher costs. And this is not controllable, whether we like it or not. We have to pay those utility bills. And in addition to that, with the internet, most of the people like you just don't go there for waffle. You go there for the internet, and so therefore we should have to have a good internet provider, but the cost is really high for that. And
Yeah. So Tejal.
if I could just add on to that, even on the back end, I mean, just when we're looking at property tax assessments too, I mean, they're continuously going up the roof. And, of course, it takes a little bit more effort on us to continue to monitor those assessments, but also insurance premiums. That's been such a huge pain point for so many people. I know that was a pain point for me. But there aren't even many providers or brokers available who are, well, not the brokers, but there aren't many companies who want to insure hotels that much. So
how do you even approach that kind of an issue? Then, I mean, you can't cut back on insurance, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what happened is, we were been partners with M3 for 8 years, and through our partnership, we were introduced to SIB Consulting Company, which actually gives us a help on to save those utilities. I don't have time to look at all the invoices and check how many terms or natural gases that we have for a meter. So SIB is the one that helped us to do that. And guess what? They find saving for us.
Yeah, right. That's and that's really what it's all about. And Billy, you must be thinking about that every single day in operations. What are some of the things that you think about in areas where you could save both by maybe eliminating or reducing something that's either redundant or unnecessary, or maybe categories where you could renegotiate pricing and save?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple different ways. One, on property taxes specifically, there's a number of companies that you can hire to do assessments and to monitor your property tax bills every year and fight those municipalities where your properties are to ensure that they're not grossly increasing your property taxes, that they're doing everything by the books. And then, of course, they take a cut of whatever savings you get, much like SIB, looking into all of our waste management contracts, utilities, anywhere where you have a long-term contract, especially when you have a larger portfolio, it becomes, I don't have time to look at every single contract. And so hiring companies that do that for you and take a split allows me to then focus on, acquisitions and new development and making us more money as a portfolio and providing better returns while they go find savings for us in many areas. I think there's also, outside of property tax, there's companies that look at your credit card commissions that you pay and make sure that the merchant provider you're using is charging you the exact exchange fee they're supposed to. There's companies that also look at chargebacks and will file your chargebacks for you. And then there's, finally, Rosie, I know we use one other company to check our OTAs. That's the other thing. That's probably the largest savings that we've seen as a company that would shock you is in the OTAs.
And Billy, do you mean the percent of commission that you have to pay to them?
Yes. There are companies that will audit that for you for free. And we have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars letting them audit those fees.
My goodness.
Find out how much they were charging us over what they should have been.
Oh my goodness. That's pretty amazing. Right there. Tejal, have you thought about this sort of process?
For sure. I think that, and as we've all pretty much said, and I'll go one more time, not all of us have the time to go through every single contract to the T and, highlight and dissect and all that stuff. So that's why, leaning on to consultants who specialize in these areas is definitely key. We definitely use folks for the property tax consultant side of it, but also really leaning on to software technologies and implementing that. Really having tech that is implementing your properties that help you gather data, business intelligence tools, using whatever data and analytics come from that allows us to actually leverage or renegotiate our vendor contracts. And so that's what's been really key in our day-to-day stuff.
That's interesting. All right. So to go to the first part about what you all were saying, it very much equates to what I see in my life. Like, I can't handle the thought of having to get on the phone and call the cable company and just deal with absolutely anything, right? And I've also learned that a lot of times if you just call and you ask, you can get costs reduced. But I'm not going to do that. So I understand by having somebody to go through it, you do all of that. Plus, I would say, secondly, this is definitely the classic case of you don't know what you don't know, right? You could be sitting on a gold mine of savings, but you're not the expert. You're not the one that would even know by necessarily looking through it, because your expertise lays somewhere else. So I love that idea. And then moving on, Tejal, to what you're saying about better data insights, intelligence tools, and all of that, I've really seen a shift in the hospitality business about how technology is going to be the big savior. But it's kind of confusing because technology has come to mean absolutely everything. Besides data and business intelligence tools, what kind of business intelligence tools are you actually thinking about? And is it more front of house, getting the guests in the door, more back of house kind of stuff, systems and processes, or wholly new technologies?
It's a little bit of a combination of both front house and back of house. So at least on the back of house side, we do use some accounting software that really just helps us really analyze things a little bit more effectively than I possibly could. And so that's been really helpful. That really, in this tech, it uses AI to see where are some other areas that we can actually put more energy on and eliminate, the redundant services or redundant practices we're doing. On the front side, so with sustainability being a huge deal, and now the guest wants to stay at a more sustainable or green friendly hotel. As I mentioned earlier, the cost of acquiring that guest is much more expensive than it used to be back in the day.
Right.
So now honing into whatever sustainability tools that help me get that guest, that's what we're exploring right now. I've sat through a few demos and, still trying to figure out which one's going to be best, because also now with tech being adopted in the hotel industry, finally, there are so many companies out there and it's hard to just, pick which one is the best one. And I'm a huge believer. The tech has to make sense. Just because it's there, It doesn't mean it's going to be efficient for the guest or for my staff. So
that's a great point. There's a great book out there that I believe came out in the early 2000s. When I was an adjunct professor at NYU, I utilized it. It was called The Paradox of Choice. And the whole thesis behind that is we get paralyzed by having too many choices in the marketplace, right? If it's too much, our brains just can't seem to handle it. So I can definitely see that particular challenge. Billy, Trisha Finch is asking, do you have recommendations for companies that would audit something like OTAs?
Rosie, I'm gonna let you handle that.
Oh, absolutely. So for the OTAs, we hired a third-party consulting company, which tremendously help us every month. They go to our OTAs for each hotels, and then we got all those savings, and it's right away deposited to our bank accounts. Wow. All this money that collected.
That's pretty cool. Trisha, do me a favor.
OTA Insights.
Oh,
what's the name, Rosie?
OTA Insights. Funny that I was just talking to those guys the other day. by coincidence. So that's pretty interesting. Trisha, drop me a line at Glenn@novacancynews.com, Glenn@novacancynews.com, and we'll see if we can help you more specifically there. But Billy, I want to move on to, because we were teasing waste. And what was interesting is that SIB just saved over $28,000 a year for you guys with these one-time credits and monthly savings on waste and more on IT, telecom, phone, and internet type of stuff. That's pretty interesting.
Absolutely. No, it's been great. I mean, it's amazing. Those are things you have to pay for, right? And going back to the beginning of the conversation, control what you can control, right? We can't control insurance. We have to buy it. To an extent, we can't control property taxes going up or utilities going up. What we can control is, again, going through waste management contracts and making sure that we're using the lowest cost provider in the area. And again, that becomes hard to do. And companies like SIB have large contracts across the country, and they're able to use their team to get us better negotiated contracts all the way around. I mean, we have an amazing IT team. They do an awesome job, but you wouldn't believe some of the costs that we've seen saved even through them that SIB's found for us. And it's been a tremendous thing to see, especially in the internet and phone line item. And we've acquired 5 hotels last year, all of which had terrible costs in the internet and telephone. And I mean, all of them saved, I think, over $1,000 a month.
Wow.
Just by going and looking at those. And again, there's nothing wrong with the companies that were running those hotels, nothing wrong with those owners. It's just, owners focus on what they're good at. And it's always good to look at these companies and hire them. It's free of charge to hire an SIB. And you would be amazed. They're going to find savings for you.
Well,
Glenn, in addition to that, it's not only that SIB will analyze everything. They're also going to ask you or to recommend you that maybe it's time to switch a new vendor that will save you more money. Yep. So it's not like only like analyzing. They also recommend that maybe it's time to change vendors.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe it means from going from one GPO to another type of a GPO, group purchasing organization. Tejal?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to write down everything you just said. But
you could, or just re-listen to the entire broadcast on LinkedIn.
That is true.
Yeah.
So for us, as Billy had just mentioned, that there's certain costs that we can't control, and so where we can't control, that's where we try to control with the intent of not sacrificing the guest experience. So, for example, like energy efficient technologies, right? The lighting that you have in the room, just having putting up those costs up front ends up paying off in the end. And we all know that. It's just hard for us to kind of make that initial swallow. So
absolutely. What Tejal pointed out, sustainability has been huge, not only, I think in acquiring your guests, to be able to say that you're using sustainable items like light bulbs, LED light bulbs, or low flow toilets. That's become a big buzzword, is sustainability, being able to use that as a way to acquire your guests, but it also saves you money. The other thing that I think is out there as far as controlling what you control and sustainability is changing out water heaters. A lot of these municipalities have grants that are available that will literally pay you money when you change out your water heaters or your toilets or your shower heads to be low flow shower heads and your sinks to low flow sinks. I mean, these are a lot of easy fixes that, as Tejal pointed out, there is an upfront cost to doing so, but the ROI is incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, it's going to affect your short-term profitability, but in the long term, that's kind of what makes more sense. And it increases your asset value at the end of the day. On the topic of incentives, I just learned something new a couple of weeks ago at a conference I went to, but there are things called fair market tax credits. And it's something that not many people know about, but it's basically free money that's out there. It's grant money. It's available countrywide. You just have to look up who is offering it. But apart from that, there's all those other the lead grants and even your local city probably is offering grants or incentives too. So really digging into those places where there's free money is key for sure.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you don't get a lot of guest complaint because they have a great room, a shower that's sustainable, and it's not a lot of stress to the GM and all the property personnel.
Yeah, and I love that we're in this phase right now where people are paying you and giving you opportunities to do the right thing by the environment, which is appealing towards that ever increasing number of customers. And that is kind of the virtuous circle that we're really looking to create in our businesses and here today on the show in particular. But Rosalind, I got to ask you, we talked a lot about certain things, but we haven't actually talked about reducing back office costs for hotels, right? So how are you thinking about solutions and offerings in the industry in that regard? For example, driving hotel performance and stuff like that through what you're seeing with accounting.
Okay, so with accounting, like I mentioned before, with the partnership with Entry and SIB, we figured out some ways on how to reduce reduce our utility bills. For instance, when we were introduced by Entry to SIB last year, the process is very seamless, that all we really have to do is give SIB an access to our accounts payable modules, and they gathers all information there. From then on, every month, SIB will send us a reports that's easy, very thorough, very easy to understand, and then it will tell you all the savings. And not only that, they're not charging you if they don't get any savings. And I mean, that's a win-win solution for HTG, Entry, and SIB.
I will say you're getting access to hotel financial performance through automatic PMS importing and daily report rollovers. So you're really seeing the nuances of everything, and could probably start to detect stuff. Oh, Billy, I see you've got a knowing nod over there.
Absolutely. No, obviously it's great. I also think what can be measured can be managed, right? So if you're not measuring all of these costs, if you're not looking at them every single month and creating a budget, whether that's hiring company to put together a labor optimization. We use a labor optimization software at HG to, basically forecast how many rooms you're going to have each week, and then hiring staff to do that. Going to that labor costs being high is a huge way that we can control labor costs and make sure that when we have slow nights, we don't have people on staff that we don't need. For breakfast ordering, we have a breakfast ordering sheet that they should only be ordering one time a week. That's in everything that happens that costs you a lot of money. No different, Glenn, than probably at your house all week, right? You forget something at the store, you got to get in your car, you got to go get another thing. That happens in the hotels, and when it does, they overbuy, right? We want them to focus on one breakfast order a week. That's it. That keeps them ordering exactly what they need. We don't want them ordering 3-4 times a week. Otherwise, they end up with a bunch of extra stuff we don't need. And that's just, I think, being brilliant in the basics, right? Measuring all of those things every single week. Same with your rooms, guest amenities, comp service and gifts, all that stuff. Just making sure you have a budget to it and watching it every single month as these costs have just continued to jump off.
And your soft costs will also go down, because if someone's doing something for once a week instead of 3 or 4 times a week, there's definitely going to be time savings in there. Tejal, I know you've got to add to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, so just basically, as Billy said, what you can control, you can manage. And we heard this a billion times during the pandemic. We're in unprecedented times, and now we got to rethink the business model. Well, it's a little weird time right now as well. And with those weird times, you have to look internally and see what policies and procedures probably need a little bit of a revamp. So, for example, one thing that we're focusing on, and that's because a few of our properties are up for renovations. So, implementing new preventative maintenance policies or these programs to just reduce the frequency of the major repairs. And of course, we want to extend the lifespan of our assets, but what does that look like? That means working together with your director of engineering or whatever, and to figure out, okay, what is a better policy and plan we can do so we can control these costs in the near and long term.
Yeah. There's one interesting company I saw out there that captures information, institutional information, if somebody is leaving a position. So that way it's like, that in room 203 that you got to, hit the wall 3 times before turning the faucet in order to unscrew something, that kind of, information. So it's pretty cool. And that sort of thing alone starts to save a lot of money when it comes time to, sorry, my cat just ran across the computer. When it comes, now she's jumping up on something. When it comes time to, add up all of the expenses over there. So we're starting to run low on time, which is not surprising because this has been such an amazing, fast-paced conversation. But I want everybody, before I go into a little wrap up with everybody, I want everyone out there to start thinking about how you could really look at every aspect of your business, and there are savings to be had, whether you could figure it out directly or you need a partner in order to do that. That's the message I'm getting out of this conversation. Eliminating those costs that we all know about, but also those soft costs that we aren't really thinking about. And Billy, you made a great point about figuring out the right mix of labor there, because every dollar counts in that more than ever. And if we could figure out ways to eliminate some of the human responsibilities that humans don't want to do on site, we'll be able to maybe give humans a little bit more hours and connect a little bit more closely to the guest. Are you thinking about that as it's coming to us?
Absolutely. I think that's the main point, right? Is to take any weight we can off of that hotel staff and off of that GM so they can focus on the guest experience, not only the guests that are in-house, but also recruiting guests, because both are super important. None of us are here unless we have guests in our hotel rooms. We don't have that unless we have happy staff. So I know for us, we take all revenue management off of our GMs. We take all accounting off our GMs. They don't code any invoices. They don't do any of that.
That's great.
That then allows them to focus on the guest.
They do best, right? And Tejal, I wanted you to say whatever you want, but I also think what we're getting at here, if you can make the staff happier by allowing them to do what they love, they're not going to leave. Those costs of having to replace employees are crippling a lot of hoteliers out there.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of comes down to a cultivation of culture, right? And we all, I mean, the labor issue was a huge issue before we had the pandemic. And of course, when the pandemic hit, that was a whole other can of worms. So, and now what we're seeing is in places like California, for example, is this whole talks about a minimum wage hike. And that is actually that's a very cumbersome cost upon the owner or operator. So that means doing what you can to, of course, retain the good people you have. And that means creating a very inclusive environment for them. And also not giving them so much of an overload, because burnout is a real thing in our industry. And that also means giving them some of the tools that could be helpful to them in their day-to-day. Nowadays, we thought technology was only for bigger box properties or for like the richer owner developer. And now you can actually have a kiosk, an economy budget hotel. It's a kiosk. You go to that person. It's like basically a person in a box, and you're able to check into your room. Now you can be an economy independent property. You can have a key lock service that integrates with your PMS, and you now have contactless entry for someone who's not in a higher end property. So
beautiful. I love it. All right. Final thoughts, Rose Lynn. You've done phenomenal. Now bring it home for us.
Well, I just HDG always believe on first, we satisfy our guests. We take care of our employees, of course, the returns of ROI. We always believe in teamwork. So like I said, being partnered with M3 and SIB is always a win-win situation for us. And we always said, yes, we can together.
Beautiful. Billy, what's your final word?
Absolutely. I mean, Tejal hit on culture. With the labor crisis, culture is super important. Cultivating a place that people want to work, that they're happy at work. And again, I think Bill Marriott said it, right? A happy employee makes a happy guest, right? So take care of your employees.
Beautiful. Tejal?
Yeah, you basically took the words out of my mouth. Take care of your employees and they'll take care of the guest.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's right. And that is really the message. And if you can do that and allow yourself to focus on reducing expenses in other ways, that's really where the win-win is. We want to make sure that guests are taken care of, that they love your hotel, and they're getting all the service they want. And you can do that by making sure that you eliminate expenses where it isn't going to affect the guest at all. And that's why I want to thank our sponsors today, SIB and M3, because they are there to help you do just that. It's been an absolutely wonderful time. I want to thank our incredible guests today, Rose Lynn, Billy Gilchrist, both from HDG Hotels, and Tejal Patel, Neem Hospitality. I'm Glenn Haussman. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back with more next time. Subscribe to No Vacancy. Text the word hotel to 66866. That's the word hotel to 66866, and get all of our great content. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.